What up, everybody? Welcome back to Case Digital. My name is Zach, and in this video, we're actually going to be answering the question, how to write an if-else statement in Python. So, without further ado, let's hop right in and start coding. What up, everybody? So, like I mentioned, we're tackling that question of how to write an if-else statement in Python. So, first, we're going to go over the syntax of the if-else statement and how to write it. And then we're actually going to go over a few examples to kind of give you some feel of how you can go about writing and incorporating if-else statements within your code. So, without further ado, let's hop right into the first part. What up, everybody? So, like I mentioned in this first part, we're talking about how to write the syntax of the if-else statement. So, if you've seen one of my previous videos, where I talked about how to write just the general if statement, or the one on where I talked about how to handle multiple conditions in an if statement, you've probably seen this piece of code or this code right here where you can have that if statement contain parentheses around your condition or your multiple conditions, as well as just the one where it's just, hey, I don't need any parentheses to help me separate it out. So it's actually really easy now to turn this if statement into an if-else statement. And that's what we're going to do right now. So what you do is, if I just uncommented this, what you'd have to do is essentially if I started writing here, any code that goes right here would be also under that if condition. If I want it to be under the else part of the if-else statement, I have to come back here, line it up, the same indentation, do else, keyword, colon, and now I can do my else code. And that, my friends, is the basic syntax for an if-else statement. So here in a sec, we're going to start getting into some examples of what you can do with if-else statements. Hey, I just want to jump in real quick, say thank you so much for watching the video so far. If it's providing you value, please click that like button below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so we can learn more about software development and programming. And well, speaking of programming, let's get right back to it. So we just went over the basic syntax of an if-else statement in Python. Now let's get into an example or two of what you can do and how you would use that if-else statement. So one thing that I'm going to start off is I'm going to create a variable called condition. I'm going to give it a value of true. Now, if we just say if condition, and then we just want to print hello world, then we can, if we run this, you'll just see we get hello world because condition is true. Even if we add that else statement, we say print and say I'm in else. If we print this, again, you'll see that we're getting hello world, because in Python, when it goes through and evaluates, like when it's going through that script or it's going through that Python file, it'll go down from the top. It'll say, hey, I've found a variable. Oh, that variable meets this if condition, so we'll go here. Now when it skips back out, it's going to, once it does all this code that's under this if block, it's basically going to go out, and then it's going to continue down these lines. So we don't ever evaluate the else if the condition is true, which makes sense, because this if-else statement is essentially say, hey, run this piece of code. If it's false, then I want you to run this piece of code. And that's why we use the if-else, is basically just to say, hey, if this part happens in this code, then I want you to do this. Otherwise, just do this. And so an example of this could say, let's just do something where we turn our condition into age. And age, we'll just say is 20. And we'll make a condition that says if age is less than or equal to 18, just say you're not old enough. And then otherwise, if you are 19 essentially and over, just say, yay, I'm grown up. So if we run this, we'll see that we should get, yay, I'm grown up, because age is 20. And essentially what you can see in this example is that, hey, ages gets evaluated. It says 20 is not less than, so 20 is less than or equal to 18 is false. So because it's false, you skip over this and you go to the else condition and say, yay, I'm grown up. Well, what happens if we say, hey, I'm now 18, or this person's now 18, and we run this example? It says not old enough, and that's because when we go, it says 18 is less than or equal to 18. That evaluates to true, so it goes into this part of the if-else statement here. And essentially, that's the basic example of how you would use it. It's essentially that if-else statement is there to capture, to run a section of code if it doesn't match the condition that you're doing it, or the condition that you're evaluating. And sometimes people, they don't even use the if-else. They just say, hey, like, if it doesn't match, go ahead and don't worry about it. But there are times when you're writing software that you need to do, like, hey, if this doesn't match here, I need you to go and do this part of this piece of the code here. And that's why if-else statements are very valuable, and we'll get into another video where you can even add more into this, and we'll talk about that in another time, where you can do if, elif, and else statements. And so we'll talk about that probably in the next video. But until then, this is just a basic example of how you can use an if statement, and go test it out. Take your own piece of code or the stuff that you're writing now and have a condition that you want to evaluate, and if that condition doesn't come true, then just say, hey, do this other piece of code here. A lot of times this can be used for debugging. Like a lot of times when I'm coding, what I'll end up doing is I'll just say, hey, like when I'm testing something and it's not working, I'll go and throw in, like if I'm just doing this condition, I'll just be like, hey, here, and I run it and say this, let's go back to putting this to 20. And I can know that, hey, that piece of code is getting hit in this section. So for some reason, my condition is not evaluating true when maybe it should. And so that's another way to use if-else statements, is to help you evaluate, like, is my condition that I'm trying to, or is that piece of code that I'm trying to get into being evaluated correctly or not? And if not, then tell me where I'm at in the code, so that when I actually get it, production worthy, I know that, hey, I've done all the debugging and it's there. So again, these are just some examples of how you can use if statements to help you in your coding and in your development process. And so now you know the if-else statement and how to write one. So go ahead and try it out on your own. Hey, thank you so much for programming with me today and learning more about if-else statements in Python. If this video provided you value, please hit that like button below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so we can learn more about programming and software development. And if there's anything else you want to learn about, leave a comment below. Until next time, keep on coding.